I work in a mental health hospital, and I'm doing a lot of online sessions now to help people to cope with what the mental health state. But also we found that there's so much increase in people suffering from anxiety, I guess with the virus and the things that are in place with the lockdown and the restrictions, etc., etc. So what do we mean by anxiety? We all suffer from anxiety, and even if we don't suffer, we all go through it, but how we deal with it, how we respond to it would vary based on our ability to cope. So when we talk about anxiety, we're talking about any feelings of uneasiness, fear, a sense of impending doom. So maybe, you know, Margaret mentioned that Bradford is in second lockdown, so people may be thinking what's happening, fear of the future. And all of these things can be unpleasant. So whether anxiety presents itself in the form of an upset stomach, or you might get some heart palpitations, a nervous tension, that sort of colors everything, and you just have this, you know, dark cloud over you. It can be a panic attack, you know, discomfort or distress, and all of these things can be challenging. So when we talk about, you know, anxiousness every day, we can cope to some extent, but when it persists, then that is quite worrying, isn't it? And so there is a persistent suffering or experience of anxiety. They call it generalized anxiety disorder, or GAG. And in the UK, there are so many people who are experiencing this anxiety. And I just want to share with you that, you know, we all experience it, and at some point in our life we would feel worried, we would feel anxious about a simple thing as sitting an exam. I know that I experienced anxiety right going in an exam room, if you have to have a medical test or a job interview, and these things. So some people find it hard to control worries, and I want to talk about, you know, anxiety being something of, you know, where we're concerned about the future. And today is World Mental Health Day, the 10th of October. So it's quite apt that we're doing this talk, and I hope by the end of the sharing that I am going to do, you would find that your mental health would increase by using some of the tips that I'll be sharing with you. So if I can ask, I have some slides that I've prepared with some images. So if I can have that up, then I can maybe start with going through some of the slides. Lovely. So the image that was used in the flyer also showed that there were some ways of coping with anxiety. As you read, as you came in, that flyer was up, that information. But the next slide, I just want to, what it might look like. And sometimes you may think, oh, I practice meditation, so I'm very, you know, calm and I'm very peaceful. But anxiety can come in all shapes and forms. So simple thing as irritability, obsessive behavior. It's not just being worried. It can be, you know, you overindulge. So, you know, sometimes we like to binge on, you know, sweet or salt or just snacks or pizza. It could be that we're overworking ourselves, maybe over planning, doing too many things and overworking. We might start feeling a little bit of dizziness or numbness because, you know, we're using the body, we're using the mind. We might suffer from, you know, insomnia. We're not able to sleep or have a good quality sleep. Also, we might have lack of concentration, and this is something which, you know, is also important. And with lack of concentration, it can be also not being able to make decisions correctly. We might avoid things, so avoidance behavior. So we know we have to, you know, do the vacuuming, we need to do the dusting, we need to take the garbage out. But these things we think, oh, you know, I just can't, you know, get the feeling to do it. And it could be that we these things are being triggered by the anxiety is being triggered by all sorts of things. So what I'd like to ask you to do, I know you have to keep your mics muted, but this is the way I do the session. Is it will be sort of self reflective, so I might ask you to just reflect on certain things, and at the end I know we have some time for question and answer, so if you do need to ask me anything, you note it down and we can address it later at the end. So the next slide, I'm going to ask you what triggers you in terms of you feeling anxious. So just have a quick look at this slide, and just, I mean, there are only 24 things written there, but I'd like you to maybe just go through it, and at this moment, or if you've had a recent anxious moment where you felt a bit anxious, so you're experiencing anxiety, what was the cause? What triggered it? And I'm sure you will be able to associate with some of these things, and maybe there are other things that might, you know, which are not in the list. And I know for me, it's like one of the things that really triggers it for me is when I'm not being heard. So when, you know, I'm trying to share something and the person is not listening to me, and I start feeling that feeling of, you know, not being supported and those sorts of things. So the next slide looks at, you know, what the difference between fear and anxiety. There's a big difference, because fear is a response to threat here and now. So yes, you know, we might have a fear of, you know, a mouse or a spider, and, you know, it run across the, you know, the room, and, you know, you start your heart beating, you start, you know, sweating, that sort of thing. That's fear, because it's happening right now. Anxiety, however, is when it's based in the future. So we are thinking about, it hasn't happened, but we are thinking about it. And by just the thinking process, we create, you know, all these anxious feelings within the self. So most times people who suffer from anxiety may think that they're fine. So the next slide shows the iceberg effect. And the iceberg effect, you know, we all tend to think that, yeah, on the surface, everything is fine. But what lies beneath, you know, the surface is, you know, you can't cope. And this is also happens a lot with people who suffer mental health problems. You know, they feel they can't cope, but because they may associate it as a weakness. If you say, I'm feeling anxious, you might feel, you know, you can't cope, get a grip in life. And so it's okay when you're feeling like this, because we all go through it. And with everything, it passes. So I thought I'll just share this slide with you, because the idea really is for you to acknowledge that, you know, things happen, things of the past comes up, memories of the past comes up, you know, sometimes even things from way back. And then the other side of it is the fear of the future, and that's what I want to talk about mainly in this talk. So the future, we don't know what's going to happen. So we know that this coronavirus started, we had our first lockdown, then, you know, the figures started to decrease, you know, the people who were infected and those who were dying. And then lo and behold, the restrictions were eased, and then we went back into more or less nearly normal. And then again, the rates keep going up. And it is such a big problem at the moment that we may have a national lockdown. So places like Bradford already are in lockdown. And this can be a bit daunting. This can be a bit worrying because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. So how do we cope? Well, I'm going to give you some tips, and as I said, what I use, and one of them is meditation and how it has helped. But other than that, the next slide, I just put this one up because it's okay to ask for help and to reach out. So yes, you may be in lockdown, you may be on your own, not being able to be with your family members, be with your friends, but it's okay to ask for help, to reach out. And you can do this through other means. You can do this through, you know, the telephone, you know, now with Zoom, you can do, you know, so many platforms where you can connect with people. So we just have to look at other ways of being in touch and keeping in touch. So for people who suffer from anxiety, one of the things is, you know, that fear of even going outside, that you would catch the virus, or even going in the groceries. And now, you know, I think because people have sort of relaxed certain restrictions, you still find when I go out for a walk, for example, people don't even move to the side when you're passing them. So I move to the side, and it's like, you know, instead of getting anxious, let me take what I can control. I can control me moving my body away from people, and that's what I do. So let's look at the cycle of anxiety, which is the next slide. And it talks about, you know, anxiousness. Then you may go through some therapy or self-care, and there's so many things that out there, you know. CBT is one of the things that I use for people who are coping with anxiety. Then you might feel okay because you have had some therapy, some self-care, maybe you took some time out, you went and did a yoga session, maybe you attended one of Bradford Inner Space meditation sessions, and you're feeling okay. But then what happens? You start thinking, this feeling wouldn't last very long. You know, it's suspiciously good. Something bad is going to happen. And then that's the thought that creates that anxiousness, that this wouldn't last. You know, this feeling of happiness, this feeling of peace wouldn't last. And then you go into that cycle again of getting anxious, then having to go through the therapy, feeling okay. So let's look at some of the subtle signs of anxiety, and we will talk about how we can break from this cycle of anxiety. So some of the subtle signs, which is in the next slide. Okay, so a simple thing is doubting the goodness or validity of opportunities that come my way. Triple checking things just to make sure. So you lock the door, but you have to check it again. You think, oh, you didn't switch the, you know, the stove off. So you're outside, you reach the corner and you have to come back to check because you have that sort of niggling voice, which is a negative voice. Feeling self-conscious about how we are walking in public. So low self-esteem would be associated with this. Avoiding putting things off. I mentioned that earlier. So always thinking of this worst case scenario. So instead of being optimistic, you're pessimistic. So you see, instead of seeing the cup half full, you see it half empty. And you think, oh, that something is wrong. And then, you know, spending a lot of time on social media. One of the things on the NHS website on how to cope with COVID-19 is don't listen to the news on a daily basis, or keep looking and reading the news. So yes, it's good to know what's happening, and it's good to be able to, you know, be aware of your surroundings and etc. But when you get addicted to it, you know, it's okay if you play a game, you know, on your phone, but when you get addicted to it, and this addiction is what is, you know, it's like a sign of you're not able to control yourself, and it leads to, you know, these feelings of, you know, not being well within your own mind. So I'll give, throughout the talk, I'll give you little bits of techniques and tips. So one grounding technique, which is in the next slide, is using the 5 senses. So when you feel you're getting anxious and, you know, overwhelmed, that, you know, you can't cope, things are all around you, you know, you feel that you need to move away, you know, you feel like your heart's starting to beat. This grounding technique is very, very effective because you're using the 5 senses. We take on information through the 5 senses every moment, every second. So when you feel a little bit anxious, just take a moment and just ground yourself by looking at 5 things you can see. And maybe 4 things so you can touch. So just maybe, you know, your skin, just maybe touch your skin. If you're wearing a nice soft sweater, just touch the sweater. If you have a pet next to you, just stroke that pet, or your favorite blanket, anything, you know, take something and just, you know, just be aware of how that sensation of what you're touching. And then using the sense of hearing, just 3 things you can hear. It could be the humming of, you know, a fan on. It could be the noise of traffic or the birds. And then perhaps 2 things you can smell, you know, maybe, you know, your hair, if you want to smell your hair, your skin, or your perfume, anything that you can at that moment. And then perhaps 1 thing that maybe you can taste. And sometimes you may not need all the 5, because if you've done, you know, 1 of the sense, that will help you to sort of start calming down. And that's the operative word there, calming. So your mind is busy whirling and, you know, around and around. And the grounding technique is that once you focus on, you know, the senses, it brings you into that present moment. And Margaret mentioned that I do a lot of mindfulness, and this is something I do as part of my work. And mindfulness is really being in the present. So just listening to, you know, your heart by putting your hand on your chest, listening to the beat of your heart, that can ground you. Simple thing as just the breath. So the breath is always with you. It can, you know, slow you down as soon as you know, follow it as you breathe in, and as you exhale, you're in that natural rhythm of staying with the breath, and then everything starts slowing down. Another technique that could be useful is affirmations. So the next slide talks about affirmations for when you're having an anxious day. And you can come up with these even, you know, based on what you like, based on things that you value. So you have to come up with it for yourself, or you can use, you know, a simple affirmation, which I tend to use. A simple one is I am peace. So I want to take you through just a little exercise now. And so I mentioned about mindfulness. So I just want you to be aware of where you're sitting and how your body feels as you're sitting on your chair, or maybe you're lying on your bed or on your sofa. Just be aware of how you feel. And then bring the awareness to the breath. So as you breathe in, just feel the sensation of the air as it enters your nostrils, fills the lungs, and as you breathe out. So stay with the breath. And an affirmation that is very effective that I use is just a simple sentence, I am peace. So what happens is that you're trying to reduce the number of thoughts in your mind. Now, the mind always creates thoughts. That's the whole nature of the mind. That's the job of the mind, to create thoughts. It creates thoughts of, you know, present things around you, of the past and of the future. When you practice mindfulness, which is a technique to help with anxiousness and anxiety, it grounds you by being present. And now the idea really is to get your mind to focus on a thought and then go into the experience of that thought. So if you'd like to follow me with just a couple of minutes experiencing this. So as you breathe in your next breath, breathe in peace and calm. And then focus your mind on one thought, I am peace. And this is something you can even repeat to yourself in your mind. So as you breathe in your next breath, breathe in peace. Experience that everything is slowing down. Now focus on that one thought, I am peace, and go into the experience of being peace. If any other thought comes in your mind, bring it back to that one thought, I am peace. Okay, so I hope you were able to feel a little bit calmer and peaceful, so you can go on doing this for a longer period and going into the experience of being peace. And peace is your natural way of being. So when you move away from peace and you become anxious, that is not natural. So the idea is to go back to what you are innately, what is your natural way of being. So we were talking about affirmations. So that's the one that I use, I am peace, but there are other ones that you can come up with. And it's best if you come up with something that works for you. So some of the affirmations will be, I'm capable, I'm valuable, to help build up your self-esteem. I am loved and supported if you're feeling a bit lonely. I am calm, I'm safe in this moment. So this is something that you can use, especially, you know, when you have to go outside and, you know, you're feeling a bit anxious that you might catch the virus or whatever. I am safe, I'm calm. One of the things that I use is a visualization, to visualize that you can create a bubble of light So if you go outside, you in that safety of that bubble, and you'll be safe, and keep saying, I am safe in this moment. Another one, when you're having, you know, a bad day where you're struggling, you know, I have survived all my hardest days, so I can do it. You know, I can overcome this one. If you're having negative thoughts, you know, I can overcome my negative thoughts. Another one, I'll focus on my positive. So these are affirmations, and affirmations are very, very powerful. So sometimes when you're anxious, you can't seem to even remember them. So a good thing is, you know, to have them stuck, you know, in places. Maybe in your bathroom mirror is a nice place. So, as, you know, as you get up in the morning and you go to the loo, you have something positive to start your day with, for example. The next slide shows that when you feel anxious, some simple things that we can do. And you always, and I'm sure you do this already, have a cuppa. So in Yorkshire, you know, they say, have a cup of tea, love. Yeah. So something nice and warming, that's soothing. Listen to music. Yeah. Take a walk. Nature is very nurturing. Nature is, you know, there, and, you know, to help take care of it. A very powerful thing, method also is journaling. So get a little notebook and pen. Whenever you're going through any stuff, you know, it could be a negative thought that has come up, just write it down, and you know how you're feeling. And you'll be surprised that once you start journaling, you know, a lot of stuff will, you know, will clear, and you will become clearer to you. If you feel you're overwhelmed by doing a lot of stuff, make a list. Yeah, start making a list. And if you want to put on the top, you know, write a list, you could tick that one when you finish writing your list. So at least you have one tick in your list of things to do, for example. And it's important, it is important to ask for help. And if you are in your household, in your family, and you're not getting the help you need, there are other means of, you know, getting help. Call a friend. You know, online you can get lots of information, you know, of charities that are there to support you. Even just go onto the NHS website, there's lots of information there. So ask for help. Don't just, you know, suffer silently. The next slide is all about, you know, this positive and negative. And it's very simple, this, about how negativity can weigh you down. And the news out there about the pandemic, you know, all the things that are happening, you know, it can be a bit, you know, too much sometimes, and it can be a bit heavy, and it can be feel like it's weighing you down. So how to get rid of it? Stop carrying it around. We carry around these two heavy bags with us, of the past and of the future. So just put them down. You know, if you feel a little bit anxious, just decide, okay, I don't want to take this. Just leave it outside. When I feel a little bit better, you know, I might go back and pick it up. And then you realize you don't want all of this negative, heavy stuff. So why are you walking around with it all the time? So just stop carrying it around. So a simple thing to make a decision. So the next slide talks about think positive and be positive. And this is something which is a bit challenging with amongst all the negativity that you've been hearing about the pandemic, you know, stuff like that. But you have to be responsible for, you know, your mind. And how do you control your mind? How do you, if you use the analogy of the mind is like, let's say, a wild horse, for example. When you have to tame a wild horse, the first thing you do is you have to lasso it, throw a lasso And once the lasso is on the neck of the horse, it might still be running at top speed, but eventually it slows down, and then you can guide it to where you want to take it. And I find sometimes when my mind keeps going on like that, you know, I can then take it, but it takes a practice. So it's like a muscle that you have to develop to think positive. And the moment you do it, and the more you do it, you know, the better you get at it. So always see that, you know, in every cloud, there's a silver lining. It means that in everything, there is something positive. It can be how bad. So within this, you know, COVID pandemic, you know, one of the things that I felt was, you know, being able to be at home and, you know, work from home. I'm so much more productive being at home, doing so much more, because I'm also able to take time to spend for myself. So the time it would take me to travel to work and come back and I'm tired, now I can just, you know, right after breakfast, I can start work. Or after I'm finished, I can maybe, you know, go straight on to do dinner and, you know, go for a walk afterwards. So find meaning, find that everything that you're going through, there is something positive. You just have to look for it. It might be there to teach you something. So learn the lesson. And once a lesson is learned, then you would move on. So we talked about worry and how anxiety is all to do about, you know, thinking about, you know, the future. The next slide shows about, you know, the things I worry about can be so huge. The things that can actually happen, that can happen, it hasn't happened yet, it can happen, might be just a smaller portion of all the things that I worry about. But the things that do happen is just such a tiny, tiny speck of all of that. So for me, when I saw this slide, for me, it just put things in perspective, that this COVID thing could be so huge. We don't know when it's going to end. We don't know when we will start back to do our traveling, you know, meeting people, etc., etc., etc. But that's all in the future. You know, we don't know. So what do I do? All I need to do is to take care of my own health, you know, do the things that they're saying so that I don't catch the virus, I don't pass it on to others. And even if I do all the things and I do get it, then let me go through it, you know, as best as I could. So worry is also something that affects your immune system, stress and worry. And this virus is all about, you know, attacking the immune system. So the moment that I start feeling stressed, the moment I start feeling frustrated and worrying and all of these things, I'm not doing any, my immune system any good. So just remember, you know, just do what you can. So another version of this is the things that are in my control and the things not in my control. So the next slide shows that how much we worry about things out of our control. What people believe, what other people think of me, how other people act, the weather, the traffic, the past, the bills I have to pay, you know, people dying, maybe within my family, if anyone there's a death, people, all of these things. Can you control any of those? Getting older, aging, can you control that? You might do as much exercise and, you know, whatever, but still it's matter, and matter deteriorates after a while. So eventually the wrinkles will come. Eventually all the bits and pieces will start sagging here, there, and everywhere. So what do you do? Do you associate yourself to just what's on the outside? So another thing, you know, you worry about is what other people say and what other people think of you. And this is all about opinions. When we have all these different opinions. So drop the opinions of what other people think, how people will react, you know. So what are the things I have that I can control? I can control on the physical level, you know, what I eat, the exercise I give my body, you know, living my values, the words that I say, the actions that I do, the things I read, the movies I watch, you know, taking care of yourself, setting your own boundaries, knowing, you know, when to say no, practicing mindfulness, meditation, you know, stating what you need in a relationship. So all these things are the things that you can control. So just focus on those things. Caring for yourself, it's your responsibility. It's no one else's responsibility. It's not the government's responsibility. It's your responsibility to take care of yourself by doing the right things. So just be aware of what you have in control. So the next slide just sort of summarize this. You know, when you can ask for help, if you feel that you're not having support, you know, then ask for help. You can control that. You can control your sleep routine, the time you go to bed, yeah, how you talk to yourself, so self-talk. And we all know we have that critical voice that sort of, you know, criticize when you do things. So change that way of talking to yourself and say, you know, be gentle. Yes, you made a mistake. You got out of control, but that's okay. Next time, you know what the trigger is. So, you know, you would have things in place. What you eat, you know, the boundaries and those things I mentioned. So the next slide is I have a quotation from Rumi, and it says, all your anxieties because of your desire for harmony. So seek this harmony, then you will gain peace. And what that means to me is just, you know, don't bother what, you know, what other people think. Just be happy in your own space. So if you want to go in the park and, you know, hang upside down, then do that. If it will, you know, help you, you know, we tend to think, oh, we shouldn't be doing that because, you know, I'm an adult, so I shouldn't be acting like a child, you know, because, you know, that's the whole idea. We want to be in harmony, but sometimes, you know, in my spiritual practice, and in the Brahma Kumaris, the notion of the soul is who I am, and the soul is eternal. So the soul doesn't age, the body ages. So yes, you can feel to be a child. And most times when people are approaching, you know, old age, so people who are in their, you know, 90s, that's when I consider old, they still feel, you know, they're young at heart. And that's you know, one of the things that, you know, can give you that peace when you're able to be in your own space, in your own feeling. The next slide talks about this perspective, and the perspective of, you know, I mentioned about pessimists and optimists. So on the left side, you see something is missing, but you can see that as, oh, the puzzle is almost complete. So it's your perspective of seeing things. So just be aware of the thoughts that you have. When something happens, what's the first thought? Is it something you go to the negative, or do you see it as something which is in the positive? Yeah, so a self-check. So all these are tips that you can can use. And I'm just going to, the next slide shows that, you know, when you're making progress. So it's always good to, you know, acknowledge that, you know, you're making progress. You have slept better last night. You might be a bit more productive in doing something. You have a little bit more energy, drinking more water, eating your vegetables. All these are ways that you're making progress, because you could be taking care of your body. Yeah, this is on the physical level. On the mental level, you can be, you know, thinking more positive, you know, taking time out to go for a walk, be in nature. Emotional, setting your boundaries, being calm when you talk to people, not, you know, controlling what other people should say or do. So all of these things are acknowledging that, you know, on a daily basis that you're making progress. So that if you get that feeling of anxiousness, it's not that your whole day has gone, you know, pear-shaped. It must have started a bit, you know, quite good, but then things sort of spiral. And it doesn't mean to say it can continue to spiral, because you can put some of the tips I'm sharing with you. So I have a few quotations to share with you in the next slide. And I'll just leave you to read that while I just put some light on. It's starting to get dark here. So the first slide quotation is about learning how to focus on the here and now. So we've talked quite a lot about that, being present, being mindful, and accepting your present experience without judgment. And that will help you to overcome your anxiety. Just being to acknowledge how you're feeling and knowing that this too will pass. So every moment is also a fresh beginning. So this is a quotation by T.S. Eliot. And so, yes, maybe the past moment was, you know, a disaster because I got, you know, upset or whatever. But the next moment, I can choose to change that. So it's a fresh beginning. So every day I like to see it as it's a new page, and I can write and create, you know, my day on that new page. And at the end of the day, that's it. I've done. I've played my part. I've had some successes. I've had some failures. Hence, I need to learn, because, you know, life is all about learning. And then a lovely quotation by Khalid Gibran. Our anxiety does not come from thinking about the future, but from wanting to control it. So we mentioned it is, you know, also about, you know, thinking about the future. But when we want to control, and we talk about the control thing. So the next slide, I want to talk about a little bit about being in the present, because it's the only way to cope with anxiety, to be in the now. So thoughts of the past can come, but you can't change the past because it's already happened. And because we worry about the future, it's not happened yet. So we're imagining the future. But when I'm in the here now, past and future disappears. And it's a muscle that you have to develop. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of, it's a choice you have to make to be in the here and now. And there is a lovely book by, I think it's O'Toole. Is it Peter? Not Peter O'Toole. I can't remember their book. But if you Google it, The Power of Now. And it's a amazing book about, you know, being right here now, and how, because that's why it's called the present, because it's a gift. And we we don't acknowledge it, we don't appreciate it, because the moment this moment has gone, we can't get it back, and we don't know what's in the next moment. So let me enjoy being in the present. The next slide talks about some ways, or not, again, some tips to break out of your worry spiral. So worrying of the future, which, you know, we said creates that anxiety. And I mentioned some of these already, but so create a practice to get present, so being mindful. Notice and try to release any expectations. You know, this thing called expectations, it really brings you sorrow. And I remember, you know, at one time I had equation stuck up, you know, on my mirror, that expectations is not equal to happiness. Because when you expect, you know, it raises, you know, that feeling that, you know, somebody should do something and then they don't. So it's out of your control, really. Savor the little things, you know, the little things, hearing the birds as you walk outside. Maybe you see a butterfly or even a flower. Just stop and appreciate how the colors are changing on the leaves of the trees. Simple things. Do one thing solely for enjoyment, whether it's eating a piece of chocolate, but eat it slowly and really enjoy eating it. Or playing your favorite song, you know, music, whatever works for you. We're all different. So my things that I enjoy would be different to what you enjoy. I know for me, when I feel a little bit overwhelmed and I need to take some time out, a simple thing as doing a jigsaw puzzle on my iPad is so soothing and so calming, because for me, all the thoughts that's worrying out there disappears when I'm just focusing on doing my jigsaw puzzle. But another thing that works for me is meditation. So sometimes I take some time and I just go and sit quietly, or if I take a walk, I'm in that state of being peace and calm, as we practiced just now with the breath. So breathe. This is why when people are anxious, they ask them to breathe into a brown bag, is to regulate that breath. So the breath is always with you. Stay with the breath, and the moment you stay with the breath, you start calming it down. And then remember, you're not alone. There's how many billions of us on this planet, and we're all experiencing ups and downs every day. Some of us more than others. So remember, you're not alone. It might feel that you're alone, but you're not alone. So the next slide is, I think I'm okay for time, yes. So just being peace. So when you're in the moment of being peace, present, you have that state of peace, like we experienced earlier on when I asked you to just focus on that affirmation, I am peace. So when we have too much in the past, you know, we tend to get a little bit depressed, you know, because of the guilt, the regret, all of these bitterness, things of the past, of sadness. And when we think too much of the future, we moved away from the present. So anxiety, stress, worry, fearful, you know, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, uneasy. But bring always, you know, it's like this balance. We need to be in balance. So the moment your thoughts go from past to future, be aware of your mind, where it's taking you, and then you be in control, like that wild horse. Throw that noose over it, the neck of that thought, you know, reel it in and guide it into just being I am peace, or any of the affirmations that you want to experience. So the next slide, I'm just some tips to care for yourself to help with your anxiety. So some of these I've mentioned already, but I know people have been coming in a bit later on the event, on the room. So this is just reiterating for the benefit of others. So identify and manage your worries. So write down things, as I mentioned, make a list, journal, set aside specific time to address them, you know, engage in, you know, breathing. So a simple breathing exercise. If you want to do it with me, we wouldn't do the 4-7-8 one. The simplest one is the 4-4-4. And how it works is simple. As you breathe in, count 1 to 4, then hold your breath for 1 to 4. And then as you breathe out, count in your mind 1 to 4, and then count 1 to 4 before you breathe in your next breath. So this is something that if you want, we can try it. So breathe in your next breath, count to 4, hold, count to 4, breathe out 1 to 4. Before you breathe in, another 1 to 4. So just experience practicing that, and you'll see how you can start slowing down. And this is something you can practice afterwards, you know. So remember, when you're starting to feel a little bit anxious, you know, come back to the breath. Care for your physical health. So we've done a lot of that. You know, there's so many things you can do with your sleep, your exercise, your food, you know, and then support, talking to someone. So take things, you know, a small step every day. In the next slide, it shows you. So start small. So it might look like, you know, you can't overcome this anxiousness, but that's okay. Don't think of it as a big thing. Think of it as just this moment by moment adds up, and you get a minute, and then you get, you know, an hour, and then you get, you know, a day, and then from a day you get a week, a month, and that's how you progress. So start small. So I would like to take you through a meditation experience. So the next slide is preparing us to go into that meditation experience, and we're going to create our sacred space, a space that we would be safe and which we would be able to recharge and nurture ourselves. So I'd like to request if you can take a moment to just pause, follow your breath, and as you stay with your breath, breathe in that peace and calm, and visualize that peace and calm energy is going to every cell of your body. And so your whole body is becoming peaceful and calm. So you're pausing, being in this present moment, and you're going to experience a meditation to care for yourself. So the next slide, as you relax into that state of being peace, relax your body, relax your mind. If any other thoughts of the past and the future comes, just let them go. See them as they are like leaves floating on a river. And you bring back your awareness that I am peace, I am calm, And the next slide. So breathe in and bring love to the places that need it. So if you want to put your hand on your heart, and as you breathe in, feel the warmth of your body. You can visualize that you're breathing in peace. You're breathing in and bringing love to all the places that need it. So it's within yourself. You can visualize it within your home, within your family. So as you bring in that feeling of peace and calm, we're going to create that sacred space. So the next slide. And I'm going to talk you through it, but you will have to do this for yourself because each person will create a different space because we're coming from different experiences. So this space can be anywhere, which is physical or non-physical. So it's a space you're creating in your own mind. It's within you. But you can use the resources that are unlimited at your disposal. So you can use any resources you want to help you to create this space. So just be aware of where this space is. It can be somewhere outdoor or indoor. It can be on land, in water, in the air, in space. And it's a space that you feel comfortable. And we're going to bring in some of the senses so that it becomes real to you. So perhaps you may want to include some sounds in your space. So maybe the sound of running water, perhaps the whistling of the birds, whatever works for you, whatever is soothing and calming for you. And you can bring in now some smells, your favorite scents in this space. So maybe your favorite incense stick that you may light, or perfume, or natural smells like lavender, whatever works for you. It's your space, it's your experience. And in this space, I'd like you to bring in some colors that you can see, your favorite colors. So if you creating a space that have walls, just be aware of what the colors you're using and the material that you're using. So if you're sitting on a grass, for example, how does it feel? Is it soft? Is it warm? Is it cold? Is it, bringing that sense of touch? So in this space, I'd like you to create a seat that you may want to sit on or lie on. So it could be anything you choose. Remember, you have unlimited resources. So it could be a throne studded with diamonds. It could be a hammock. It could just be a mat on the bare earth or grass, whatever works for you. Your favorite sofa, chair, bed, whatever. So as you visualize that seat, add in to make it comfortable, maybe your favorite cushions or throw or whatever, and just be aware of the material, how it feels as you touch it. So just take a moment to just appreciate what you've created in your space, the sounds, the smells, the colors, the materials that you've used. And I'd like you to take a moment to now sit on your seat or lie, whatever is comfortable for you, and just be with yourself. Take a moment to be at peace. In this sacred space, nothing negative can enter. It's a space that you can recharge and nurture yourself. It's a space only for you. No other beings can enter this space. Well, actually, there's one being that can enter this space, and that's the divine. So however you envisage that supreme being to be, God, whatever form, name, and this is where you will recharge and you can nurture yourself. You can even have a conversation with that divine presence. Because in this space, you are being your true self. So as you sit and you recharge and you nurture yourself, and you connect to that divinity, you're present. You're in the now. You're calm and you're peaceful. And this is a space that you can revisit over and over as much as you would like. And you can stay as long as you choose. So whenever you feel you're getting anxious, worrying, feeling a bit overwhelmed, bring your awareness to the breath. Relax your body, your mind, enter your space, your sacred space, and just recharge and energize. So now it's time for us to return. So bring your awareness back to the group in the session, and if you do have your eyes closed, you can open them. So thank you all for being here, and I hope that you found some of the things I shared would be useful and you can use them you have already been using some of them, and perhaps you can continue with your meditation practice. So thank you very much, and I'll hand you